Okay, apologies for that. Had to sort out an audio issue, as in there was none. Um, okay, so going back to the game itself, as I was stating, when in the game, as we can hear now, the audio is relatively loud. It might not sound too loud on this video, but when you've got a headset on, it is quite loud. So what I set in was a way for the player to be able to manage what's going on. They can mute the whole sound completely. They can just take the music down, and they can actually manage the sound effects. With the enemy, I have added in that sound you hear in the background is basically the enemy. The concept I wanted behind that was similar to the ticking clock in Peter Pan, so you can hear it coming. For this script, it's quite simply just an audio control thing. Using Unity's new audio mixer options, we can actually basically control the, the sounds, as it were. Just trying to remember where there is audio mixer control. So on here, if we go to audio mixer, as you can see here, we've got main audio. Then within that, we've got two separate elements that we are going to be using: sound effects and music. The every sound effect within the game runs through this audio section, then all the music goes through this audio section. By putting it through those two separate sections, we can actually control separately the volume. So the player has control over it, basically. Which then it's just a simple case of adding in the sliders within the UI system, and then setting up the code as we can see here. So it brings back, when we move the slider, it will send the value through. That value will then set the sound volume based off of whichever one we're manipulating. Then that simple mute button that I've set up just on there, it's just a tick box. When it's ticked, it will actually set the volume to mute. What I need to implement is whatever its previous volume was, it will set it back to, because as we can see, the mute button doesn't affect it as a whole. Anyway, going into the game itself. So once the player's gone through everything, they can get back to this menu just by pressing the P button, as displayed up here. They have a tutorial section just in case they have missed it several times over. They can restart the game, which will bring them back to this exact point, or they can go back to the main menu depending on what they need to do. So if we press P, let's get into the game. Now, as the enemy gets closer, we can hear him getting closer, it gets louder. We have this display that comes up, which this display, the actual visualization of it, the alpha, it gets brighter as the enemy gets closer to us. So the closer the enemy, the brighter that is. That is just a simple way for us to show what is going on with the player, so there's a sense that they're being chased. Oh, I pressed the wrong button, apologies for that. As the player is running through the game, so player 1 controls the side steps and forward movement, and also spacebar for jump. Player 2 controls the sideways movement, so looking around, sorry, not sideways. The looking left and right, and the sprint button. These traps here is simply just doors that go up and then slam back down again. They're not there to do any damage, they're just simply to slow the player down a bit, so it gives you a sense of, if you're sprinting constantly, you can achieve something. That noise we just heard was a warning system, because when you reach a certain door, it's got a code on it. You have to implement your code. Depending on what door you're at, if player 2 is activated, then player 2 has to put its code. If it's player 1, then player 1 puts in his code, etc, etc. Again, as I said, this game is simply to get the fastest time possible, so it's a case of running through as quickly as possible. These traps, they will be easier when you're working as a team. Then this door is these doors, it's going to be a case of the players remembering their codes and working together ever so slightly to try and push it through to get them there. Like I said, that door's just blocked them off. One of the things I do want to show you is, this is the part I'm probably most happy with in terms of the game. This is what the game section, so the player section, looks like to begin with. It's simply just a start point. Then as we click, so as the game starts, it will generate this forked system. This fork system is completely randomized just based off of the values that are brought in. So at the start it will randomize number 1 or 2, and then it will generate the level. You can have all lefts, as we see there. We can have all lefts, then rights, then lefts, then lefts. It's completely random. All of that is controlled with the load level script, which is, there we go. So at the start of the game, it will select the game object start point. So this is attached to the start. Takes the spawn point from there, and it creates that as the basic first lock point. Then for whatever value we've got this set to, so at later dates we can set this to be harder, so longer levels, shorter levels, whatever it needs to be, and it will go through and count. So in this instance it will be 4 times, and it will add. So this is the part where it randomizes. It picks a number between 0 and 1. If it's 0, it picks the element at 0 in the prefab list that we've got. If it picks 1, then it picks element 1 at the prefab list. So all we need to make sure is that in the actual prefab list we've got 0 set to left and 1 set to right, and vice versa if that's the way you wish to do it. Then it takes the clone, it will instantiate that prefab at the spawn point we've chosen, rotate it so it's at the right direction, as it were, create it as a game object. Then it will take the spawn point of this clone that it's just created. So it takes the lock point on the clone that we've just created, and that becomes the spawn point, and it will go through numerous times, and then finally it will take the end section, so number 2 from our prefab list, and add that on at the end. That part I'm most happy with. I feel like I've achieved a modular design that I wanted to do, and the bigger the number, for instance, if we change this to, let's do an example of 8, the bigger the size, the more differences you will get throughout the time that the game is played. So as we can see, it's just completely generated it. It's completely random. I think that's a fantastic feature, and something that's I'm extremely happy with. As I said, the point of this game is simply just to record the fastest time. The game itself, we'll just do a quick run through now so we can get to the end, so we can see the end menu. Let's put it on maximize so we can actually see what we're doing. Okay, so just up ahead here we've got directions. Now these directions, I just wanted to tell the player which direction they should be going in. So green is simply survival. This is a different trap. With this trap, if you land in this area, your speed is halved, so you actually slow down. So my thinking behind that one was that it gives the players a chance to work together. So player 1, for instance, would be telling player 2 that I'm running forward now. If you press the sprint button, that'll give us more speed, and then when I hit a specific, when we get to the right point, I'll attempt to press the space bar so we can jump over this actual trap. That was the concept behind it. I'm going to turn the music down because I can't even hear myself. So we'll get back into the game. Okay, so then with the door systems, it was just simply the thinking behind this. sprint, try and get to the end, do it as fast as possible. Door code should randomise, and that's something that I've got to implement into the actual game so that it will come up with player 2 at certain points. Let's get through. As we can see through the holes, we can see a little sphere in the distance there. That sphere is the goal. That's what we're trying to get to. So we've got a timer up here running at 85, 6, 7, 8. So there we go. So we got through the thing, through the game, sorry. And as we can see, we've got the fastest time. So let's set our name. Let's just call it test, and we put that in, and that records the name. And then that is the game. With the end menu, it's simply just a really simple script. Just to go back to where did I put it? End screen script. So as you're running through the game, you've got a constant score basically that's coming through. That's your time, what you've got. It'll bring it through and display it at the point we need it to, and the actual timer score will remain there so we can see it. And then it will print it onto the screen for us to see. So as I said, nice and simple, easy to do. That's the bulk that I can think of the game, and the parts that I'm most happy with. Oh, the enemy movement. Right, as I said, there's an enemy that's chasing you. I haven't shown you it just yet. So if we go back to start game, actually no, let's load this back up. The enemy is quite simply a block. There he is. That's our block. He just follows you through. If he catches up, he adds a death to the counter here. So it shows a negative, as it were. For future implementations, what I wanted to do was have the death counter count. So the faster you can get through with the least deaths was basically the concept that you were trying to get through. With his movement, he's simply just where's the enemy movement? Enemy behavior. So enemy behavior is part of the game entities, which is the same as what the player movement will be. All it does is it sets movement to true. When it wakes up, it moves forward. For moving forward, it will move transform position plus 0.05, so it's got a slow, constant pace. It's constantly coming towards you. Hence, with the ticking, it was something that was foreboding. That's what I was aiming for. At certain points throughout the map, the enemy will get a turning point. So let's play this. So as it's coming forward, it's coming towards me, chasing after me. It's not necessarily chasing after me, it's just following a path. Depending on which way it needs to go, this will turn left or right. So it hits that point at the end of the map and it will turn left or right depending on what it needs to do. That's simply it. It will follow you through the path, and that's it. Okay, well, thank you for watching.